when you go to medical school, you see a lot of horrible things. You have to take bodies and dissect them, and you have to do all this stuff and remove hearts and redo all this stuff, right? He was freaking out just as much as I was, and he was screaming of fear. And all I know is we were running like as fast as we could. I wasn't fat at the time, so I could run. We had to run all the way back to the car. And I remember once, maybe twice, but I know for a fact, I turned around once and I saw the thing coming towards us, and it didn't let up. And it was running, and I don't care if you believe this or not, people. I to the people who think Bigfoot or whatever I saw out there, whatever it was, I can't say it's a Bigfoot. I don't know what it was. I just can tell you this: it wasn't some hairy man. It left the United States and went into British Columbia and up the Canadian Rockies to, avoid the draft during the Vietnam War. I can tell you that wasn't the case. But I can honestly tell you it was running between two legs and all fours and back and forth. And it seemed to gather speed when it did that. Now that I saw, and I, like I said, I didn't want to stop and take a picture. I didn't even think, to take a picture. I know I had the camera around me. My camera bag was left over, with a bunch of equipment in it. It was left there because I dropped it. I didn't care about it. I let go of it. I never went back to go get it because I was too scared to. And I can tell you that I ran and my friend ran, and somehow we kind of got a little bit separated, maybe the last quarter mile or whatever. We just took whatever way, direction we thought the car was at. And I remember getting to the car and I saw, now I don't know if this was the same one or a mate or another one, but it was like 25, 30 feet away from us in the tree line. And it was like a 4 or 5 inch, pine tree or whatever it is, the trees that were there. I'm not expert on trees. It was bending it over like a bow. Like it just bent over like nothing. And it screamed at us.
Oh, so you seen another one then?
Yeah, I don't know. It wasn't the one that was chasing us because it was already there by the car.
Oh, okay.
Okay, the one that was after us was behind us. And it was like, and it could have caught us at any time. It didn't catch us. I think if we would have stopped, it would have done something, but it wanted us out of the area and it was behind us. So whatever this was, its mate or a companion or whatever, was like off in the tree line, right off where we parked the car. Like I said, 25 to 30 feet. Now, the smell, I can taste it right now, just even talking about it. It was pungent. It smelled like urine, feces, musk, to the point. And now this, again, it wasn't raining. It wasn't warm. It was still chilly there. But the air, it literally, from that amount of feet, it burned your throat. When you took a breath, it actually hurt to breathe.
So that's one of the classic signs, the smell, the pungent smell. So you had that experience to go along with it. And you know what? Who knows how many? Maybe they had little ones off to the side you didn't see also. Well,
all I know is it burnt my throat so bad. Now, I get in the car and I start the car. I felt so bad, because it ruined my friendship I had with my friend, because he honestly, probably to this day, thinks I was going to leave him. I will tell you this. I only had one thought, and that was to start the car, stick it in drive, and hit the pedal and get out of there. And that was my only thought. And I'm sorry. It's hard for me to admit this because I have never admitted it before. Would have I left my friend? I don't know. But I know that I had to get out of there because something told me if I didn't get out of there, I would never get out of there. As I'm starting to take off the car, I got it in gear. My friend grabs the car door. He opens the car door. I think he gets like one leg in the car, and I'm dragging him. Now, I went probably about 20 feet. I came to a quick stop. He got into it. He was all scuffed up and bleeding. About at that same time, whatever this creature is takes a rock. I can't tell you how big it is, so I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to say it was an 8-inch or a 12-inch or a 20-inch rock or a 1 pound or a 10-pound rock, but he throws it, and it hits the fender and part of the door on the passenger side, caves part of the fender in, and creases the door, by where the hinges is, where the seam is. And we take off. And we're really, at this point, shook up. I mean, like you wouldn't believe. I mean, we don't know what we saw. But whatever we saw was the most scariest thing I ever encountered in my life. And my friend felt the same way. And we went about 15, maybe 20 miles. I can't tell you how many. It was at least 15 miles away. And we ran into like a little store out in the middle of nowhere with a gas pump. And we went in there because I wanted something to drink. I just had to get out of the car. I had to relax. I started talking to the guy and found out he actually was a draft dodger from Vietnam that moved and married a Canadian woman. And that's where, he ended up. He kept saying, "What's wrong with you guys? What happened? What happened?" And we didn't want to tell him, "Hey, well, we saw a Bigfoot." But finally I said, "We saw something that was big." And he goes, "Well, you got to be careful because there's bears out here." And a week ago, a man and his wife were out hiking, and the wife gets hurt, so he went to get help. By the time that he got to where he could get help, they went back there. They found only part of the wife's body because she was eaten by bears. So, I mean, that is the thing, you had to worry about. And the guy told us the story. I said, well, bears don't stand on 2 feet and have long legs. They don't have they don't have long arms. They don't have the body of a humanoid. They have a body of a bear. And we told the guy that, and the guy just kind of like looked at us. And, we didn't have to pay for what we got. He gave it to us. But he lectured us. He goes, you don't go out any places like that because there was sightings in that area of Bigfoot. And what we described to the guy, he goes, that's the classic of a Bigfoot. And he said that if you stumble across one accidentally, and depending on, if it has its mate there or whatever it's doing, or depending whatever, you don't know how it's going to respond towards a human. And I can tell you that it didn't give any friendly feelings to me. It didn't, it didn't throw rocks at us while we were running. It showed aggression all the way to the very end. Again, I don't know if that was its mate at the tree line or another one of them, okay, because there could have been several in the area.
You know what else? Well, I was just, what Patty kind of mentioned to me, whenever you held up that camera, maybe it mistook that for, pointing something at it, and it felt threatened. Who knows, Well, maybe, yeah, they're smart enough to realize when whatever, maybe it was they thought it was some type of weapon. Who knows? Right.
But I'll tell you, it scared me, James, so bad. I remember having to drive home. And, when you're up in British Columbia and you're up in the Canadian Rockies, that's a 3-day drive home back to Seattle to Tacoma. And I tell you, and that's driving like 16, 17 hours a day. We were so shook up, that that's all we could talk about, and then he made the decision, well, Gary, we can't talk about this because I'm opening up a medical practice. God, I am a medical doctor. If I go around and it gets out that we saw a Bigfoot and we were chased by a Bigfoot, I'm going to be the laughing stock in the medical profession in the area. And, and I lost a good friend over it. 2 reasons. One, he was scared I was going to open my mouth, which I didn't do. The other is that he was upset that he thought I was going to leave him, which honestly, I can't answer that.
I got to ask you a question, Gary. When you were out there before you saw the Bigfoot, did you take some pictures of the woods and stuff? I
took pictures of the cemeteries, yes, I certainly did. I had pictures of the cemetery which I think I have them stockpiled around this house somewhere, of the old, internment camp cemetery. And plus the cemetery where, there's a bunch of cemeteries where the Chinese were, died, from mining, accidents and stuff like that. So, yeah, I had a lot of pictures.
The reason I ask, you might want to look through the pictures. Maybe you might have caught him in a picture that he was following you, or maybe he was there and didn't even see you.
I never took a picture. People have asked me, well, just like a friend had a camera. He didn't take a picture either. I tell you something, when you're in a life-threatening situation or something you think it's life-threatening and it happens instantly and you're not prepared for it, you don't think about snap. Maybe somebody out there would. But I know.
No, I'm not saying that, Gary. I'm saying maybe you might have took his picture. He was in a picture accidentally. You didn't even know.
I reviewed all my pictures when I got back and printed them out. It was not a film camera. It was a professional digital camera, and where I could take several hundred pictures on a memory card. I reviewed everything. It was, nothing there, but other than, the cemeteries and ghost town pictures of old buildings and stuff. I didn't think about it. Okay. I had the camera around my neck and all I did was run. I probably left, to be honest with you, about $2,000 worth of lenses and flash equipment and a flash meter and all that stuff behind. So somebody else going up there later found some nice, cool stuff because, I didn't care. I wouldn't go back. And you know what? I grew up in a family, James. We were campers, from a little age of probably 2-3 years old. My dad and my mom and my brother, we'd go camping everywhere through Washington, Oregon, California, Mount Shasta, all this stuff, Idaho. And we go camping a couple times a year. I grew up in that, out in the woods. And I'll tell you, and then when I got married, having 8 kids, we would go camping, and I would take my kids out camping. We'd go to the state park for the day and have picnics and go walking in the woods on, trails and stuff like that. I'll tell you what, after that experience, my wife and my kids don't understand what I went through, but they had a lot of resentment come summertime because they wanted to go camping. And I would say, okay, if you want to go camping, there's the state park a couple miles from us. You guys go. I have not gone into the woods since then. Never. I mean, I got 2 acres of cedar trees, but you know what? Where I live, there's houses now around me. Where when I first moved here, there wasn't. But I mean, I won't go out in, the woods because I tell you, it did something to me. And I'm amazed at anybody going out deep in the woods without some type of protection. And I'll tell you what, a 380 or a 38 or, a 9mm isn't going to protect you. I'm going to tell you that. That's like throwing BBs at something. I tell you, these things are big. And I tell you, if you get in the wrong side of one, they don't want you around. And we got to go on a break here and bring our guest on, Ken, here in a minute. But I honestly, this is my feeling, Gary's own feeling, is if we didn't take off running, if we wouldn't have got to the car when we did, I wouldn't be doing my show today.
Oh, my goodness. And you know what else? That ride home, you had to be thinking, how am I going to explain this to my wife? Oh, geez.
Yeah, you tell her, okay, she was nice enough to let me have her brand new car to go on the trip. I had a nice Jeep, okay? But it was a few years old and it had 100,000 miles. She just bought, a couple weeks before this trip, a new Cavalier at the time. And she was nice enough, take it, but be careful. I come home with a crushed fender and a door. And the first thing she goes, what did you do? Were you out drinking? Were you smoking something? And I said, 1, I don't drink, Linda, do I? And 2, I don't smoke anything. Okay, not since the Vietnam days. I am totally clean. Okay, and how you sit there and tell your wife, well, you know what? We ran into a Bigfoot. Okay. Well, what did you hit? I hit nothing. Okay, take a look at it. There's no scratch marks other than what hit it. You could tell something hit it. It was it wasn't a type of dent. It would be like a crease from hitting something. This was where something was thrown against it and put the dent into it. Right.
I mean, boy, to try to explain that's tough. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, it was the scariest thing I have ever